Hey guys, Mike Jensen, and welcome to video 4. Alright, so we imported the mesh into Mudbox where we're going to sculpt it, and I threw a subdivision on there. And right now we're just going to stay at level 1 and just start blocking in the basics of the anatomy. Just trying to define the chest right here. Um, I'm always keeping an eye on reference. You guys can't see it from the video, but I always have my eye on anatomical reference. And this sculpture isn't going to be perfectly anatomically correct. It'll be pretty close, but it's not going to be perfect. Alright, so we're just adjusting the overall feel of it, trying to get the beast that we want. Making everything a little bit thicker, like more muscular, because right now everything's pretty flat, and we're going to have to pull a lot of this out and push some of it in to give the illusion that it's actually popping. Trying to figure out a way to get these muscles in between the wing and the back of the arm, because they should be fairly big if they're going to be the ones flapping the wings. Notice the top of the neck's a little bit flat. I'll go ahead and fix that in a little bit. Trying to get those lats in there. Um, they might be a little bit big for what we're trying to do, but we'll push those back a little bit later. The arms look a little bit flat too, so I'm going to go ahead and push those out, or make them a little bit thicker, rather, and define the tricep area a little bit. There's not much definition going on right now because we're only at one subdivision, but once we get up to about 3, it'll start looking pretty good. Just trying to get the general idea of things. Right now the hands look like garbage, but go ahead and fix those. Trying to get the fingers not looking so like jello. So I'm going a little bit crazy on the knuckles, but I'm going to go ahead and soften that back a little bit on each one. Soften in between each knuckle on each finger. It works okay. And just trying to get the creases in there. I want to get the overall shape before I start putting too much definition, or else it'll be kind of hard later on to get the general shape. And that's the way we really want to work, is start low, and then once you get the shape in for, say, subdivision 1, then you can go to subdivision 2, and then once you get that one done, go to 3, and go to 4, so on. In this video, we're not going to be getting into too much detail. I'm going to be putting a little bit more detail on the face than anywhere else, but the rest of the body is going to be pretty much just the basic anatomy, the basic structure that I want. And the top of the hand looks a little bit thick. I think it's because we haven't defined the where the finger bones go, but we'll fix that a little bit later as well. Just keep working on the arms. Trying to decide where I want to work is so much has to be done, and I don't know where to start. Just trying to get in a little bit here and there, trying to get a feel for things. I want to give him an older look in the face, a little bit more wrinkly, like he's been making a bunch of faces for a while, and it kind of stuck that way. So I'll go ahead and pull that out. And we want to widen the nose as well. Um, the two slits in there aren't really, it shouldn't be that close together, so we'll go ahead and spread those apart. Just defining the lip area right now. Right now he's kind of got fish lips, but it's okay. We'll fix it a little bit later. And we don't really want him smiling. Right now he's smiling, so I'm going to go ahead and change that back to a frown as much as possible. We're gonna have to fix those fish lips though. I think I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with this nose. Go ahead and spread it apart. There we go. Starting to look a little bit better. There we go. It's more of what we want. Not that. No. And we're gonna start fleshing out the other areas of the face. We got the basic structure, but now we want to kind of add the meat onto the top of the bones. I guess is one way of putting it. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and start defining the eye area a bit. You need to make the brush size a little bit smaller. Trying to get more of a primate type nose. Soften the innards of it. And bring out the middle a little bit more. You'll see me go back and forth and just basically I'm just trying things and seeing how it works. I really don't know what I want at this point, so I'll go back and forth quite a bit, and you're gonna see a lot of stuff that doesn't look good, but we'll get through the hard parts and start finding something that we like. protruding out a little bit too much. I want it to be a little bit more. I want it to be a little bit more flat, um, not like a regular nose. Let's go ahead and push some detail into the wrinkles around the mouth. The kind of wrinkle you get when you smile or smirk or grimace, I guess. A few ways of putting it. Now we're just gonna start adding some definition to the brow. It needs to be pushed out a little bit more. It was pretty flat. The whole body's really flat right now, so we shouldn't be fleshing everything out. And always keeping a constant eye on our anatomy and on our reference. It looks a little bit cavemanish right now. The brow, the kind of flat brow, so we'll pull it up, make it more arched. Trying to make him a little bit skinnier in the face, because he is old, and the skin sort of thins after a certain age. It's not as it loses some elasticity, so. And go move the cheekbones up a little bit. I'm gonna start dividing the horn area by pushing that in a little bit. And bulging out the horns, or the skin over the horns. Now I'm seeing some problems. The mesh wasn't welded correctly when I exported it, so I'm gonna have to re-import the entire mesh, and just transfer all the detail back onto it, because that's not gonna work. We can't work with that. So learn from my mistakes. Make sure everything's welded perfectly. And right now I'm just checking the rest of the body and seeing if there's any more problems that I have to fix, because I have to go back into Max anyway, so I might as well take care of the problems now rather than to have to do this process over and over. So everything else looks pretty good. Just the bottom of the tail that's kind of got me. Yep, so everything's good except for that. So we'll go ahead and fix that. Alrighty, go ahead and export it. And pop it back in after we're done fixing it. So now I've started to speed things up a little bit. It would have been pretty boring, and there was a lot of sculpting going on. The video itself is over an hour long, so there wouldn't have been enough time. And it's easy to see what's going on anyways. A little bit more fun this way. So I'm gonna start sculpting the torso right now. I kind of have an idea what I want. I want him to have like pretty big abs. He should have a pretty muscular physique. So we'll go ahead and sculpt these. And the abs are one of the things that I'm not gonna use symmetry on. I mean, I'm using it right now, but when I start to sculpt the abs, I'm not gonna use symmetry because if you look at abdominals like on Google search and stuff like that, you're gonna find that almost no one has perfect abs symmetrically on either side. And it would have been one of the things that would have been a little bit harder to fix or to make not symmetrical when we were working on it. So we'll go ahead and just do it like that right now. And but for everything else, like the legs and the arms, we're just gonna do it symmetrically for right now, and then we'll create little imperfections later on when we retopologize. After that, we'll create the imperfections. For now, it's okay. Just trying to get the general idea going. Just pop his abs in there. Alright, I'm trying to, I got some pretty big obliques. I think I'm going to tone those back a little bit. We don't want them really that big. Throw some ribs in there. Nothing too fancy. And gotta have a belly button. So we're at a subdivision higher than we were before. And I keep switching in between shaded and not shaded faces. It gives you two different views it's pretty good to see. So we'll just define the belly button area more. Put that little fold over it. And push that back in a little bit more because it's kind of, the whole stomach is sticking out a little bit too much, more than I want it to. And you'll notice when you're sculpting, if you want to make something look really physically strong, it's not how big you make the muscle, but it's how defined it is as well. Like if you just make the muscle just like popping out huge amounts, but you don't have a lot of definition, it's not so much about the popping out as it is the like carving in as well. So you want to find a nice medium in between those two. It'll give you good results. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do those ribs right now. I really had to work with them too much, so figuring it out as we go. It's starting to come along. I'll just keep working at it. And creating the imperfections. Popping that out a little bit more. There we go. The physique looks pretty clean right now. The real rough stuff going on. And we'll add that stuff in later with the imperfections or in the asymmetry. Alright, so he almost has an APEC. It's kind of what we're going for. Maybe I think I need to make the chest a little bit bigger. I'm still working on those obliques and the ribs. Alright, so starting to put in that clavicle, collarbone. And I'm trying a little bit too hard right here because the head's hidden, so I can't really go up the whole way, so it's kind of pointless to work on that, but so now we're up another subdivision. And just add more definition, more detail. Change the overall shape a little bit. Trying to get the chest the way I want it. I'm trying to perfect those obliques. And we gotta give him a little bit of a bulge down there. It's gotta be something. I really don't feel like throwing in this whole package. It wouldn't be that fun to model, so we'll leave it out. But you gotta put something down there. So we'll just throw a bulge. And I'm gonna start working on the back as well. I want to keep the whole torso visible so I can hit the obliques perfectly. I mean, sorry, not the obliques, the lats. And get a good work in on those. They're a little bit big right now, but we'll tone them back. So just adding a little bit of those more detailed carves in between the abs. And I think I'm gonna redo what's going on with the ribs. I'm not really too great at the anatomy on the ribs, but I'm coming up with something that works pretty well. This guy's not a 100% realistic character in terms of anatomy. We're not going for 100% realism, so it's okay if it's not perfect. And so putting some definition into the lats. And everything I'm doing right now is symmetrical. Now putting those muscles in between the wings and the arms. Those need to be pretty big. So I'm going to push those out a little bit. Alright, so throwing the delts out and the traps as well. Just getting everything that's visible I'm getting. I didn't really know how to do I kind of made up muscles on his back because I didn't really know what to do with the wings there. So I just went ahead and made some stuff up. As long as it looks good, it's okay. I'm changing the overall structure of the lats. And just working in those back muscles and those trap muscles. Alright, getting pretty close. Looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and move on to the next part. Which is the head. So go ahead and start popping that out. Extending the traps onto the top of the head or the neck, whatever you want to call that right there. Just keep the muscles flowing. I don't think anything happening on top of his head would be realistically anatomically correct, but if it looks cool, let's do it. So just continuing to form the muscles, define them a little bit more as much as I can. Alright, so looking pretty good right now. Put some little stretch skin on there. It's getting kind of old, we gotta show it. start working on the face a little bit more. Getting that detail in there. And we're going to be constantly revising the nose and the cheeks. It's just something that we can't really get perfect first try. And I wanted to work on the eye area, so I'm going to go ahead and import an eye mesh. I'm just making it in 3ds Max, and I'm going to throw it over back into my box. It's really basic. Shouldn't really go over this too much, so. Basically, I just beveled it inwards and then created a few chambers around the edges where I wanted it to be hard when I soften it. So go ahead and import those. I got to redo it because I was using a different mesh than I was using before. So, no biggie, but waste a little bit of time. So there we go. We'll just bevel it. And then grab a few of the edge loops and chamfer them. Then use symmetry, collapse it, and export it as an object. If I ever get there. There we go. And it should work a lot better. Alright, so we're going to start working on the arms now. Still running at low subdivision. Start defining those delts. Remember, we don't want to make the muscles too big. The key is to make them defined. Kind of lost track of that for a second there. Start defining the triceps and the biceps. And I'm always keeping an eye on reference. Remember, it's important to... A lot of people say that, you know, they work to, oh, I did this, and it doesn't look very good, but they're like, oh, I didn't use reference. And who really cares? I mean, using reference is an aid. It shouldn't be, you know. You shouldn't have too much pride to not use reference, especially if it's going to help you. So, use your reference. Just starting to get the overall shape. There you go, keep on thickening up the arm. Try to define that elbow in there. Alright, so we're going to go up another subdivision and start adding even more detail. Until we get what we want. There we go, that was looking a little bit flat, so we'll go ahead and round that off a bit. It was looking kind of funky. And go ahead and create more separation between the muscles to add more definition. And then when you're making your model for arms, on really strong arms, you want to consider the triceps more than the biceps. The biceps aren't, I mean, in relation to the triceps I think, I believe they're 2/3 of your arm, or upper arm in terms of muscle, so you want to make your triceps a lot bigger than your biceps, and it'll make the overall arm look bigger. So, go ahead and keep that in mind. So we're just working in the delts right now. keeping everything symmetrical for the time being. Just keep carving in the detail. And usually what I do to add the little small details like that is I'll create two little incisions in the arm and then bulge the in-between, and it'll create a nice little effect. So use the soft brush to push in the detail. I mean push in the that like what I'm doing right now, and then I use the bulge tool to get in between those and bulge it out. You want to make sure you're not leaving a lumpy result. I'm kind of getting a lumpy result right now. I'm gonna have to go back and fix that. In the end, I don't think it'll really matter on this character. He's gonna have so much texture and so much imperfections on him anyways, it's not gonna matter. But it's good not to get too lumpy with your work. It starts to give a really fake result. Alright, so we're just bringing everything back and going over it again. Looking at the overall swing of things. Right now I'm trying to get into detail that I don't really need to be doing right now, so like the inner part of the chest. This is well suited for a lot later. I really shouldn't be worrying about that right now, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. Alright, so time to start working on the legs. And the legs are pretty much the same thing as we did with the arms. I just want to puff them out a little bit. Right now the arms are thicker than the legs, so we're going to have to definitely beef those up a little bit. And we're going to tone the arms down a little bit later as well. But right now we want to get the overall form. Alright, so just throw it in the front of the legs. Nothing really too special to it, just keep working at it until you get something you like. And something that doesn't look too puffy and fake. Just kind of what I got going on right now. It's okay, we'll get something working. Change the overall shape again. You always gotta, once you work on one part, you're always so focused in. Every once in a while you gotta just zoom back and see how it looks as a whole. And keep refining it from there. Still go ahead and start putting in the detail on the back legs. Trying to get the knee bone in there. Turning out okay. And then we're going to start putting the tibialis in there. It's one of the more difficult ones to deal with, but it shouldn't be too hard. I'm going to start beefing up the calves. The the bottom of the legs, right before you hit the feet, need to be a lot thicker as well. Um, Everything's going to need an overall kind of thickening. Right now it's kind of thin. It wouldn't support everything he's got going on up top, so make those a little bit bigger. Let's just start putting in more detail into the knee, go up into the subdivisions so we can actually add that detail. Trying to add the individual strands of muscle. Doesn't turn out too well, but works okay. The inner part of the leg muscle isn't working too well, so I'm going to have to go ahead and back it and tone that down a little bit. Make it a little bit softer. But right now we got it going for the knees is pretty good, and the upper back leg is working fairly well. So there we go. Start thickening the feet a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do the back of the kneecap or on the other side of the leg. I haven't really found a way that works out too well yet. We'll get there. Alright, so we're just continuing to refine the legs and make sure it all fits together. Go ahead and come back and look at it as a whole. That back calf's a little bit flat, so we'll go ahead and pop that out a little bit in a second. Start doing the feet for now. Right now we're just really trying to get the overall form for the feet. They need to be a little bit fatter, and the toes aren't working too well. What they come with in the standard subdivision isn't really great, so we're going to have to redo those, make them a little bit longer, and just really adjust the overall shape. Then we're going to go ahead and add the toenails in there as well. It'll be better than actually modeling it in a lot quicker. And so right now what I'm doing, or what I started to do, is adding in the bones as they go up into the upper part of the foot. Fix some structural issues, and add the knuckle type parts. The foot's going to take a lot of structural editing to get it the way I want it, because the toes are so close together and you have to edit each one individually, start freezing every other one to get to one. It's pretty tedious, but it'll go by pretty quick. So now we're just going to start doing the nails. I'll thicken the feet a little bit. Get a better structure overall. Always keep an eye on reference. I'm going to keep reminding you guys that until the end of the video. Alright, so starting to add the nails. Pretty simple. Just pop a little square out and then I carve around it and pop it out a little bit more. Then you got a nail. Make those bones a little more defined than they were. Alright, and almost finished up with the feet. Fix a few structural things and we'll be done. And keep refining the cast, make it a little bit more defined back there. A little bit more, less symmetrical, I guess, for each calf. And I just put in a little imperfections. So now we're going to go ahead and deal with the face. Change the structure of the eyes to make it look a little bit more mad. We don't want him to look like a softie, so make him look like he's angry. And we're just going to keep fixing the structure of the overall face. I didn't like the way the cheeks were pointing out, or popping out so much, so I went ahead and toned those back a little bit. And now we're going to start getting into the little bit finer detail. We're going to keep adjusting the structure of the nose as well, as long as it keeps bugging me. Alright, so now we're going to start throwing those lips in there. Maybe make them a little bit less fish-like this time. Alright, starting to get a little bit finer detail. Maybe wrap the skin a little bit closer to the eye. And that's another good reason the eye. I mean, that's actually the only reason we put the eye in there, so we could closely fit the skin or the eyelid around it. So we'll just continue to tweak everything, working symmetrically, and make a little bit of a kind of like a droopy skin above his eye, under his brow. His lips still aren't really satisfying too much, so I'm going to pull the bottom lip out a little bit. The whole chin, really. Give him more the look we want. Open the mouth a little. I open the mouth so I can work a little bit better on it. Really, it's a little bit hard when it's close together because you keep sculpting both sides when you only want to be sculpting one. So works a little bit better. And right now I'm kind of adding these like little divots where the horn's gonna go, and these really aren't gonna work too well. They look kind of funky, and they just don't collaborate with the rest of the mesh. So I'm gonna have to take them out eventually, but I'll leave them in for right now because they're just gonna be so easy to take out. It's just gonna be a quick smooth, and they're gone. So leave them in for now, just in case I change my mind. Again, just keep adjusting the overall structure. The madder we can make him look, the better. Okay, that's not necessarily true, but pretty mad. And we have a lot of detail to work with right now on the face, and we haven't really got into it, so we're not going to need any more subdivisions for this. Creating kind of a stretch sort of skin around his horns, maybe where the bones grew a little bit too fast or a little bit too much and pulled out the skin a little bit in a kind of abnormal way. And now I'm going to start adding the wrinkles. This guy's really old, and like I said before, he's probably been making quite a bit of faces, so I thought I'd let those kind of sink in a little bit, stick. He shouldn't be too pretty. So the uglier we make him, the scarier we make him. And again, I'm not really liking what I'm doing to the horns right now, so I'm gonna have to take those out a little bit later. It looks kind of, I mean, it looks okay from the side, but from the front view, it just looks ridiculous. So I'll fix that a little bit later. Alright, just continuing to add the detail to the face. And you'll notice I'm working in a non-smoothed mode. It's easier to see what you're doing, actually. Add some more wrinkles. I actually might overdo it with the wrinkles. I go pretty far, even extending it into his mouth. Um, and in the case of the mouth, there's absolutely no way that he would have wrinkles like that, or no way that I can think of. But it looks kind of cool. It looks a little bit satanic, which is kind of what we're going for. So we'll leave it in for now, and we can always take it out later if we want to. Alright, so kind of pulling down that kind of skin fold over his eye. Part of the brow, really. Showing some scratches in there. Put some age on him. Alright, and just keep adding in that detail that I don't really need. I'm going to take out a little bit later, but that's okay. I'm smooth it out a little bit right now. I keep trying to make it work, but it's just not functioning. So just kind of stretching the skin a little bit more over the horns and everywhere really. Adding finer detail. And all this really is just a refining process, over and over again. You just got to keep messing around and see what works and see what doesn't, until you get something that does the job. Alright, and I'm getting kind of a lumpy effect. I'm going to have to fix that, especially right there. Um, it's going to have to go through a lot of refining to get that out. I'll just keep throwing in those cuts and make him look a little bit older as we keep going. Alright, and here's these cuts I was talking about earlier. They kind of look ridiculous, but they kind of work for this guy, for his purpose. I have no idea where they would come from, but they look alright. So we'll leave them in for now. I'm just adding wrinkles around the mouth. You can go ahead and, if you really don't know where to add the wrinkles, just grab a mirror and start making faces and see what happens. You know, where your skin folds and where it doesn't fold. And I take some liberties with this. I go a little bit overboard. A lot of this wouldn't happen, but kind of got carried away. It was starting to get kind of a little bit too much fun to bear, so it's okay to take liberties. It's art. That's most of the process. So I'll just add more cuts. Those work okay. Not great, but it's alright. And the slits in the mouth, those work okay. Just continuing to add detail. I could really be done right now, but alright, so we're getting pretty close to being done. The face. I could really do this forever. I should have probably edited some of that out, but I figured you guys want to see everything you can, and you guys can go ahead and skip over anything you really don't want to see anyways. So I guess I'll just add as much as possible. It's time to get working on those hands. The top is really swollen, like I was mentioning earlier, so we're going to have to carve that in, which is what we're doing now. It looks pretty ridiculous, actually. So we're just going to start making those hands look like hands. Hopefully. Overall, his fingers are a little bit... Oh, excuse me. His fingers are a little bit thin compared to, like, you know, the girth of his hands and the rest of his arms, so we're going to thicken those up a little bit, just like the toes. And just like before, add a layer of detail, and then once you get sculpting at that level, just add another level. Keep adding levels until you're satisfied with what you got. But don't go too high. We're not trying to add the entire detail right now. We're just going for the basic anatomical structure, as we said before. So we'll just keep adding those. Screwing out with it, adding the bones in the fingers. Detail you can really think up in your mind, really. Some good reference for this kind of guy would maybe be like an older gentleman, really thin guy, thin older man. You can look at his hands and see how they're kind of thinning and not so much there anymore. Alright, so now we're just pushing in between the fingers. We're going to do that in between everyone to kind of define where the bones are, rather than pulling them out, because it was already pulled out quite a bit. So let's go ahead and sculpt that in. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing we did for the feet, in that we're going to be adding nails. And I think the nails on the hands are going to be a little bit longer and more menacing than the ones on the toes. The ones on the toes kind of looks like they got clipped or something. I don't know. I was thinking about that, but I don't know. We'll just go ahead and say they broke off. It's not really conventional. It would look kind of odd to have really long toenails, but the fingernails a little bit longer. I think it would look pretty good. It'll give it that menacing look, which is what we're going for. What we've always been going for. So go ahead and start working on the thumb now and restructuring it really. It was a little bit off. So go ahead and restructure the entire thing. Get something that I want. And the palm is something you got to keep working at. It's probably the palm and the thumb. That general area of the hand is my least favorite to work on. It's for me, it's pretty hard to get it right. We do a pretty good job on this, getting it right, but it's never fun. It's never easy. Notice the finger kind of looks a little bit broken there. The index finger. We'll go ahead and fix that a little bit later. It's kind of popping out, really. So go ahead and add those tendons in the hands. And yeah, just keep refining the overall shape. Make sure it glides smoothly into the forearm. Okay, we've gotten up another level of detail. It wasn't entirely necessary, but we can start creating the nails now and getting a little bit finer into that detail. Alright, so we'll go ahead and pull that out. And see, you can see the difference between the nails I'm going to be doing right here and the other nails. But it works generally okay for the purpose of our character, which is, I don't know, to kill everything, let's say. And this nail kind of looks a little bit ridiculous, kind of like it's abnormally growing. But that's okay. Just keep adding those nails. Nothing too fancy. Once we retopologize, this stuff will come out to be a little bit more detailed. You notice we're getting kind of a little bit shoddy with how much detail we got on the nails because they're getting stretched out, but that's okay because we're gonna come back and retopologize, and once we do that, the polygon distribution will be a lot better. So yeah, it looks pretty good for what we got. Buff those fingers out a bit, move it around a little bit. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So I guess we'll go ahead and hit the tail now. This should go pretty fast. There's really not a lot of detail going on back here. And there really doesn't need to be. I mean, tail's pretty straight and flat. Except for the hyper detail, which we're not going to be doing right now, so it doesn't even matter. Alright, so we'll go ahead and deal with the most, probably the most difficult part of the tail first. The little spikes and horns at the end. Just go ahead and thicken the spikes out. A little bit thin, maybe, you know. A little bit too easy to break. And yeah, just can't really look at reference for this. Just gonna go ahead and pull the polygons around it, pull it over it to make it seem like it's the skin's encompassing the horn. This looks pretty good. This isn't gonna work so well on the wings though, but for the tail it works pretty good, reasonably well. There we go. Looks pretty good. So just go ahead and put some more detail on there, and add on to the back a little bit, where the back was ending. Let's go ahead and make up some new muscles. I kind of try to do abs on the bottom of it, on the kind of bottom of his tail closer to his legs, but it really doesn't work. So I end up just toning that back. It's a big waste of time. I wanted to try it though to see how it would look. It just didn't turn out. It's not a big deal really. There we go. Brilliant. Alright, so I'm kind of just fiddling around, and there's not much to this. That's actually all pretty random. It ends up getting fleshed back anyways, so it's not really a big deal in the end. You know, we're trying to create a fine, like kind of like the wings would be, like a membrane, which is really what that part is, the triangular part. So create a little bit more like that. It looks a little bit lumpy right now. I just noticed that. I can go ahead and go back there and fix it when we're doing the detail after the retopology. Alright, so now we kind of put a little bit of that detail into the horns, make it a little bit like rough, and that's really just throwing some brush strokes on there and then softening it back. Nothing too much special. Alright, tail looks pretty done, so we're gonna go ahead and go on to the wings. Really the last part. So go ahead and hide everything else like we've been doing. And you'll notice I really didn't go over any of the technical aspects of this program. It's such a basic program anyways. You you should really be able to figure it out, and if you can't, then there's several forums around the internet that can teach you the basics. And all I ever really use is the basics. So there's nothing really too special going on right here. Alright, now we're not going to really define the membrane. Just like you'll notice, one of the things I actually skipped over is the horns on the face. It was really just a mishap by me. I should have actually gone and sculpted that, but it's not really a big deal. After the retopology, we can take care of that. All the minor issues we can really take care of after the retopology. So don't fret too much. It'll all get done, I promise. And what I'm trying to do for the horns right now is the same thing I did last time, was pull them up into the membrane, and it doesn't really work for this really well, so I'm gonna have to redo it anyways. Not a big deal really, but figured I'd leave it in just to show you guys my mistakes, so you guys don't make them. I'm looking out for you. Alright, so you guys get to watch that 3 more times, I suppose. Alright, so that doesn't turn out too well, so go ahead and push that back. And I can always do that in texture later on, which is what I'm going to end up doing, is fixing that in the texture. Alright, so we're just defining where the skeleton goes in the wings, and where the bones connect and stuff like that. So that's what we got going on right here. Just fixing that bone right there, making it look like so it kind of engulfs the other bone, and that's how it functions. And it's getting kind of a little bit hard to work on that bone area because there's not enough definition to work with, not enough polygons. We have one more subdivision to go up before we finish the wings. I'm taking everything to 3 before the retopology. After that, it'll probably go up to 5 or 6. Probably 5. We don't need to go up to 6, but we'll see. But right now, there's really no need to go up to that amount of detail, so we'll just keep everything at 3. It makes it a little bit easier to work on this part right here, but still a little bit of a problem. Alright, so kind of working on those muscles where the wing meets the back of the arm still, and really just that front part of the wing, or the new part of the wing. I guess where the wing connects to the back. Alright, so adding that fine kind of crusty detail that we were going into on the tail. We'll be adding more of that after the retopology. I don't know how many times I've said that, but I gotta remind you. Alright, so really just some overall structural things. I didn't really fix the membrane too much. I'm gonna go ahead and do that later. But I think the membrane should be a little bit thinner. I'm not really sure how much thinner. I don't want it to be overlapping. And I also want to put some like folds and stuff in there. We'll give it a little bit more realism. But for right now, we're not going to worry about that. It's not a big deal. As long as we get the wrinkles in later. Alright, so we're almost done here. Just few more seconds and we're pretty much done with this part. We can get on to the retopologizing. Alright, yeah, this is pretty much all I can do, so let's work on it for a few more seconds, and alright, I'll see you in the next video, guys.